Hey, this is Annie with Saltown Realty. Today we are going to be interviewing Jon Strickland, who is my very favorite home inspector who has done probably a huge majority of my inspections at this point, especially in the past couple years. It'll just be a great one to ask him questions because if you own a house, you probably have questions about your house. Or if you're thinking about buying a house, you probably want to know what to look out for. Welcome. So this is Jon with Strictly Inspections. And I was just saying that I really would love to do the intro, which I feel like I do every time we do an inspection. I'm like, I've known Jon for 10 years.
It's
So
very,
yeah, about 10 or maybe even 11 years ago, I think, we both randomly ended up on this trip to Kenya teaching wilderness medicine. And we had never met before. And neither of us had really known many of the people that were on that trip to begin with. And it was just this big adventure. I was personally there for a month. I think that trip lasted for 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks. And I don't know if you remember.
it was a month altogether. We were 2 weeks in camp and 2 weeks on the mountain.
Yeah. So I
Uh,
must have stayed in Kenya even longer then. So yeah, we met on that trip and then I guess became Facebook friends and over the years kind of both ended up in a real estate realm. Me, a realtor and him as an inspector. And I don't even remember how I realized that you were. I think maybe you reached out and
yeah, I can't remember the first one that we did together, but yeah, I remember I saw that you were in it, or maybe I ran into you, and you're like, yeah, I'm in it, and I was like, oh, and yeah,
yeah.
it's history. Lots of inspections.
Yeah, hundreds of inspections together. And if anybody on here has bought a house with me, more than likely Jon was your inspector. And so, yeah, I just think it's a really cool backstory. It helps with just like the trust factor because you're really trusting your realtor and really trusting your home inspector to like tell you all the things you need to know. And so I love that story for us.
Yeah.
Um, and otherwise, Jon is just an incredible person and friend in general. If you guys have been to my parties, he and his wife have this great band. They've played at my parties, and we had a big concert in his backyard. They play a lot of beach volleyball, so this enormous backyard full of sand. And so it feels more and more like family to me, at least, where we're kind of all like working together to make fun things happen. So I love that. So welcome, and thanks for being on my little show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. No, I mean, we met all those years ago, and throughout the years that I've been inspecting for you, I feel like you're definitely one of the few realtors, out there that you do a lot of work for your clients. You really work hard to make sure that things are done right and that they get the most that they can from your services, and that mainly that they understand exactly what's happening. And I appreciate that from my end, because when I show up and there's stuff that they already understand and know, then it's like, all right, they know what they're getting into, and that's what I feel like is a big part of my job. But it's nice to have them already briefed on a lot of this stuff. And
Yeah, my favorite thing is being in the inspections and clients looking at me being like, "Oh yeah, she said that." I'm like, "Yeah." Or like you'll point something out, and we're like, "Yeah, I saw that too. Cool."
yeah.
Um, so great. So I'd love to know a little bit about how you got into home inspections. I know generally that you've like built houses. I know you've done gorgeous remodels because I've seen them. But why don't you give us a little bit background of like where you come from and how you got here?
Yeah, I got into construction work, painting when I was about 15, and then got into handyman and property management for 25 rental homes in the Salt Lake Valley. And I did all the work on those, and then started fixing and flipping those for the owner, and then just started doing contracting work and fix and flips over that. So I did property management for about 10 years on those, and basically remodeled every single one of them to the point where there was no houses left for me to manage, and so they sold them all off. And then, yeah, I've just done a bunch of contracting work outside of that. Started a contracting business and strictly construction, and then I realized that home inspections was just a great fit. I enjoy not swinging a hammer as much anymore, and handing over the list of problems to to somebody else to fix, where I don't have to do it myself. It's
Yeah.
far less stress. So, and yeah, that's
Yeah, that was good. Question is if you went from that, if you had your own contractor company, construction company, yeah, what made the switch into inspections? And that makes sense. It's probably much easier on the body, hopefully, mostly.
yeah. There's some crawl spaces and stuff
Yeah,
that's different with that, but
Always
Yeah, for
joke
sure.
that,
It beats you up. Contracting work beats you up, especially I was a bit of a perfectionist in it, and so had a hard time trusting other people to do a lot of the work. So I'd just always be doing all the work, and yeah, it's if you're not wanting to manage a bunch of people, then it's not really where you want to be. Yeah, but I
yeah,
still do contracting work for myself, which is nice.
yeah, so he's owned a couple of houses since I've known him, and it's always fun to like see the renovations and stuff and go, oh yeah, this guy really does know what he's talking about. Look at all this. Great. So I love that. Yeah, I always joke that I'm sometimes jealous of inspectors because, yeah, you do one or two inspections a day. You make pretty good money. You can, for the most part, like turn your phone off. You know, you're always kind of getting new things. Maybe that's not true. But
Yeah,
then all
depends.
spaces you go into, and I go, I'm out. I'm going to stick to real
Yeah,
estate. I put a fair amount of crawl spaces, but not the way that you do.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's the up and down side for sure. I like just the small time that I spend with each client. If I have a bad client as a contractor, I can spend way too much time with them. If I have an inspection that the client's not as good, it's just a much shorter period of time, which is nice. And for the most part, I really don't have bad experiences, which is great. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing that makes your inspections great too, is I feel like you have a pretty decent understanding of like what you need to hire somebody for and what people could conceivably DIY themselves because you've done all of the stuff that you're talking about. Like any given thing that you find in an inspection, you're like, yeah, I've done this before.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's helpful for people. Although sometimes I see people's eyes go wide and I go,
Yeah, I realized after a while I was like, well, I can do it, but maybe they can't. Maybe it's not. They don't have the tools
yeah,
or whatever. Yeah, no, I built houses from the ground up for a while in Hawaii when I lived out there, and yeah, I've done every portion of home building. So
yeah,
yeah, having that knowledge of what's behind the wall really does help especially to track down problems. I feel like there's a lot of times when I'll find something and I'll actually be able to track the source of it instead of just being like, oh, there's a leak, have somebody else figure it out. And I feel like that's valuable for the clients to
oh
have.
yeah. I mean, half the time you fix stuff, you're like, oh yeah, this was the tightened it.
Yeah, if it takes me less time to fix it than it does to put it in my report, I'll just fix it.
Totally. I love that. So what are some top three sort of like, if you had to name the three biggest things that people should be aware of when they're buying a house? And maybe things like, obviously, you're going to go, well, if the roof leaks or if there's a foundation problem, but maybe something that might seem innocuous. I'm sorry, I'm making this question more complex than what I sent to you, but something that might seem innocuous but that really is a pretty big deal. It's like top three, like things people should look out for.
Yeah, thinking about that question when you sent it earlier, I'd say that the top three things that I would be aware of as a buyer is probably the first one would be fix and flips. Not all flippers are equal. There are some that are really good. There's quite a few of them that are really good. For the most part, it's going to be just the finished quality that's not going to be maybe as high. But the corners that some people cut, and that type of stuff, like that's why you want a home inspection, is because it looks beautiful. These houses, you walk into them, they look gorgeous, and then you turn stuff off and it starts leaking, or on and it starts leaking, and things back up, and roofs start leaking and all that kind of stuff, and just being aware that to have a house be a fix and flip, it needed to be probably in pretty rough shape to start with. So,
Yeah.
knowing how far the contractor went on it, or if they were a contractor, those type of things. That's kind of the first one that I would say, and not to say that they're all bad, and then a lot of them, it's just a couple little things that need to be done, and then they're great and good to go. They've done some stuff, but that'd probably be the first one. The next one to be aware of would be old houses and drainage. Drainage kills houses. It just, if the slopes are towards the house, around the home, and if your downspouts don't have extenders, if they don't have, if it's not getting that water away from the foundation, it really is just eating away at that. And even on a brand new build, you put enough water up against the foundation, and it'll work its way in. So, on new homes, on old homes, on any homes, drainage is so much more of an issue and a big deal than people realize. So when I say put those downspout extenders on, fill the dirt, get that drainage going away from the home, that's for the longevity of the house, and it can create much larger problems if you don't take care of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one would be, new builds. Not all contractors and new builds are created equal either. And the quality of work, yeah, the quality of work can be one thing. You know, they do have standards and they do have city inspectors and they have all this kind of stuff. But, you know, I've done so many new build inspections, and I've found crushed drain lines, you know, going out to the street, and they had to rip the whole driveway. I've found a lot of drainage stuff, a lot of stuff with the, you know, the P-traps under sinks and stuff like that, which isn't huge, but you do find, you know, I found shingles that weren't nailed on the roof, and the whole sheets are coming off already. Like just different stuff that if you don't have somebody come take a look at it, you get in there, and you might have to move back out because you've got such a big problem. So it's worth doing every time you do a home purchase. Get those, you know, get the home inspection, get those drain lines out of the streets checked. You know, just check all the things that you possibly can, because, you know, a couple $100 up front can save you a whole lot of headache in the long run with that. So.
Yeah. And I feel like especially in Salt Lake, the water thing is funny because I feel like historically we just haven't had that much rain, so people don't think about it that much. There's so many old homes that, you know, never had gutters. I had a client who said, "Oh, my dad always said, well, when you buy a house, take all the gutters off of it because they just get filled with leaves. They're a big nuisance." And I was like, "Oh no, there's such misunderstanding about what gutters are for." And
Yeah.
Salt Lake, it's raining more and more, I feel like. And yeah, we have such old houses with sandstone foundations, you know, so I'm on board with that.
Yeah, and the freeze-thaw cycles during the winter, you know, you get it dripping down, it drips back up on, splashes onto the house, it freezes, and it'll destroy, you know, those freeze-thaw cycles in Utah just beat things up in a way that a lot of, you know, warmer climates don't have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really just getting that moisture away from the home, taking care of the moisture in the home too. Any sources that you can find, and any you know, preemptive things you can do for that too. So.
Yeah, I was so glad for your advice. So I bought this house in February, and it was only a couple years old when I bought it. And I was fully like, I'm not even going to get an inspection. Like, it's probably fine. And I asked John about it, and he was like, no, you should do an inspection. And sure enough, we found all kinds of stuff. And even since I've lived here, there's been things where I'm like, that's not quite right. That's, you know, we had windstorm, and I had like a siding thing fall off the roof. Of course, I always call John first. Like, what do I do about this thing?
Yeah.
So really glad and that I got that inspection, even in a house that looked perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say another thing, just for buyers in general to be aware of, you know, with any home inspector, any inspection you're getting done at all, you know, the inspector is only there for a few hours. You know, you try to run everything, you try to do things, but you live there for years, and you live there for, you know, months. Even if you're there for 3 days straight, you might find a few things that, you know, that are missed. And to understand that, you know, if the inspector, or, you know, if the plumber, or whoever you're bringing in for the different portions of the inspection, if they're telling you something, they're telling you that because there might be something bigger going on there. And to be aware, you know, it says further evaluation, get some further evaluation, like really understand that, you know, I am looking out for your best interest. I'm really trying to make sure that you understand and that you're fine with the cost, or fine with the timeline it's going to take to have those repairs done and stuff. So, but I'm not perfect, and nobody is, and at the end of the day, when you live in a house, houses are, you know, hopefully those really big dollar items are all found and all taken care of in that inspection process. But
Yeah. Had pretty good luck so far, knock on wood.
Say that again.
I said we've had pretty good luck so far, knock on wood. Haven't had any.
For sure.
Yeah, and same thing. John saw some potential signs of settling and recommended an engineer, and I kind of went, whatever, and then called him and was like, were you saying that to like cover your butt, or were you serious? And he's like, no, really. I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was just, you know, just in case anybody asks, you know, see an engineer, and I did get an engineer over here, and again was happy I did that. So do you have any funny stories with home inspections? I bet you have a lot, but I'd love to hear a couple of stories.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Yeah, I had one. They said there was a cat in the house, and I was doing the whole house, and I was pretty much done. I'm down in the basement looking at, you know, a window well, and I reach around the corner to open up the window, and this cat jumps out, lands on my face, and scratched me. It cut me off really good. But it scared me so bad that I screamed like a little girl. I was like, ah! And just fell on the ground. I fell on the ground next to the thing. I had no idea there was going to be something there. It just scared the life out of me. Definitely being aware of cats was something I learned on that. Now when I see that, oh, we've got cats around the house, I'm like, okay. I'm going to be very, very conscious reaching into places. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I had one the other day, too. They said they had two cats, and I didn't see them almost the whole time. And I opened up a closet, and I look up, and the cat's in the very top corner, just like staring at me. And I was like, where's the other cat? And then I look in the bedroom, and there's this little lump underneath the sheets in the bed, and I pull it back, and he's just like, I'm like, they're there. So, now cats for sure.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Any kind of last general advice for homeowners outside of the buyer beware stuff? Like any advice for folks? Any last minute words of wisdom?
Yeah, for sure. I'd just say just a couple of house cleaning items. Definitely change your filters on your furnaces. Yeah, people don't think that's a huge deal, but that's the #1 killer of the furnace, and that's not a cheap repair. If it gets all clogged up, you can get freezing up in the top and stuff. So change those out. Keep an eye on them. Change them. It also helps your in-air quality. Don't put too thick of a furnace filter. Sometimes these really high-quality ones will slow the flow of air, and they can actually hurt your system as well, especially with these new systems. That's a big one. One I would actually say that not many people think of is, I'd say at least every 3 months, go through your whole house and look up underneath your sink in every one of your sinks and check your P-traps. That's the trap coming down the drain line, and it makes a little P shape. Check all those connections, run everything, check those connections, and then look underneath and check the connection on the back side where your water supply lines come in. Just take a look at those things, because those are areas that people don't realize. They'll get a leak, and it won't ever. You'll never see it. It might be going for years, but it'll create moisture, it'll create mold, and then it'll start destroying stuff around it.
Yeah.
That's for sure one. Drainage, I already kind of mentioned that it is a killer of homes. But yeah, get your drainage fixed. Go out there, make sure that all your downspouts are working and everything. Make sure that that water is getting away from the home. Be aware of that. And another one, we're in the fall here. It's starting to freeze, and your hose bibs outside. Some of them are not freeze-proof. If they have kind of a straight handle on them and it has a stem going back into the house, it will be freeze-proof. So when you turn it off out here, it turns off in here, and you don't really have to worry about putting anything on the front of it or anything like that. But if it's not freeze-proof, turn off the water to it and put a cover on it. And even if they are freeze-proof, I've seen this happen a few times. I go to turn them on, and all of a sudden water starts spraying out inside because somebody left a hose connected during the winter. It has a spray handle on the end of it, and you've got water stuck in there, and it freezes back in, and then it expands the pipe and breaks it. And then the first time you go to use it, you've got a big flood in your basement. So something that people don't think about: disconnect all your hose bibs, all the hoses around the house now that it's starting to freeze up, and make sure that there's no water in those lines so that you don't have any problems there.
It's so funny that Tier 3, because I literally have had a furnace filter sitting for probably a month, and I keep going, I need to do that. There's a hose attached to my hose bib, and my drain line in my bathroom sink is clogged, so I need to clean out the P-trap. So these are literally all things that I've been I gotta get to those things. So I'll just go and do them all right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with the drain lines on the P-traps in the sinks especially, where a lot of hair gets stuck down there. One thing that I always have in every bathroom is I've got they sell these little mini plungers, and you can literally just take that plunger and just plunge it out, and it will clear your drain line. Or they sell a long plastic piece that you put down there, and then you pull it out and it pulls all the hair out. So rather than calling a plumber when your bathroom sink starts to back up, go there for $4 or $5. You'll get both of those, and you can plunge them out and just clear them out yourself, and it just totally takes care of it. So especially if you have rentals, that's what I do at all my rentals. I leave one of those underneath every single sink, and and that way I don't get that call at 10 p.m. Hey, my sink is starting to back up, and they they can take care of it themselves pretty easily 99% of the time. So yeah.
Ask a man with a wife, 2 daughters, and rentals, and he'll know what to do about those hair clogged drains.
Yeah, For sure.
Awesome. No, I love that. I didn't know about that at all. And that actually solves the problem. Like in one of my showers, I have a drain that doesn't detach, which I've never seen before. And I'm like, how am I going to clear this thing? But probably both of those things would do it. So
Grab one of those little plungers. Start there. You know, you can use your Drainos, and then there's a lot of good decloggers like that. But sometimes it's just kind of clogged up, and it needs that. It's just literally a little orange plumber that, or a plunger. Yeah, you can buy some.
awesome. Well, John, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, I appreciate everything that you do, and happy to have you in my world. So
Yeah, thanks so much for all the work and friendship. It's been awesome.
awesome. Cool. Thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
Bye.